While companies such as Tesla back in the day were absolutely cutting edge when it came to the technology inside their vehicles now being made by China, specifically electric vehicles, the EV race that is going on. Those guys over there are making vehicles with technology that is light years ahead of the West, right? I'm not just talking about the US, I'm talking about Europe, I'm talking about the established players, really, when it comes to the automotive industry. They are the established players for now, but companies such as BYD, XPeng, all those guys over in China, they are absolutely cutting edge when it comes to the tech in their cars. Now, I've actually got a neighbor who recently bought a BYD, and I actually asked him about it. He said that basically when it came to the mechanical features of the car, it's behind what we have in Europe, like the suspension, the overall ride, the drivability of it. It's not quite as good as something like a BMW here in Europe, which you'd expect for the price. That's not really a big surprise, but he said the technology in it is better than anything that he's ever experienced when it comes to a car. It is light years ahead of even the most high-end motor, the high-end EV that you'll find in Europe or the United States. But why is this? Well, some people believe that this is due to the fact that instead of focusing on making good cars like the Chinese are doing, Europe and the US, the West, they're focusing too much on saving the environment, which might sound like an odd thing to claim when it comes to an electric vehicle. After all, the whole point of them, supposedly, is to try and help the environment. Now, the actual practicality of doing that is something that is very debatable, but that is something that the industry does claim to be doing. Whether it is what they're doing or not, we can debate that another time, but that is what their tagline is. That is what their ultimate aim officially is. But is that a mistake? Some people think that it is. Let's have a look why. So this is an opinion that was recently published by Channing Lee, doing so in The Hill. So shout out to those guys for publishing it, and shout out to Mr. Lee for penning this article. If you're wondering, Channing Lee is an associate director for foreign policy at the Special Competitive Studies Project currently, so he's a guy that very much does know what he's talking about, especially when it comes to foreign trade. I'm just going to get some of the main highlights of what he said here, because it's quite a lengthy article, but I'll just go over some of the main points. So nowadays, China commands 60% of the global battery electric vehicle sales. Not 60% in their region, 60% in the world. There are more electric vehicle sales in China than outside of China, by a significant amount as well. America, by example, only reaches 16%. And it's not just cars either. It's trucks, it's buses, it's any kind of vehicle that will use electric power going forwards. China is the dominant force in this regard, and something has to be done to change that if the West is to get any kind of foothold in the future. But like I said in the intro, it wasn't always thus. All the way back in 2009, Tesla announced the Model S, and it first launched in 2013. That was absolutely groundbreaking and is the basis of success really for Tesla, and to an extent as well, Elon Musk. But what happened? Well, China essentially focused not initially on the vehicles themselves, but on battery production. They absolutely went all in. The Chinese are amazing at this. They built so many factories, so many facilities to build these electric vehicle batteries, and then eventually the vehicles themselves. Once they mastered the battery technology, the car really just became a conduit for it. It became a way to utilize those batteries. And it only took until 2015 for China to surpass the US in terms of its overall EV sales. That's been going on for 10 years now at this point. And the reason why they did that is because China focused on making these vehicles as good as possible, not the environmental impact that they may or may not have. The US, though, they framed it differently. They very much peddled the whole environmental argument, and because of that, that was the big focus. Not being the cutting edge, just being the cleanest and the greenest. But unfortunately, it's not worked. Or at least not worked to the same extent as what the Chinese focus has. And nowadays, of course, EV sales in the US are predicted to slump, and indeed they have already slumped in October after the federal tax credit was abolished. So that's not going to help either. And as Mr. Lee put in his article, electric vehicles aren't a climate accessory. They're the next platform for global technological power. America cannot afford to sit in the passenger seat with this. America cannot afford to continue to sit in the passenger seat when it comes to this. So guys, get your thoughts in the comments below. Can the tide turn? Can the West get back its advantage when it comes to electric vehicles? I'm doubtful, because China's just got that big advantage now, and they ain't going to give it up easily. They are not going to give it up easily. We can slap as many tariffs as we want on them, but in their domestic market, they are selling millions of them. They are flying off the shelves. It's helped, of course, they've got so many people. There's more people in China than the US and Europe combined, but still, it's impressive to say the least. But get your thoughts on this in the comments below, guys. Like, share, comment, subscribe as always. Have a fantastic day wherever you are in the world today, and we'll see you very soon.